a family is grieving today. Their son, also a brother, husband, friend, 32-year-old Srinivas, an engineer from Hyderabad, was with his friend at a bar in America when a man allegedly yelled, "Get out of my country," before shooting multiple rounds. Srinivas was killed. His friend was injured a little but has now been released from hospital. A witness who tried to intervene was shot but will survive. The shooter was a 51-year-old Navy veteran who fired multiple rounds. Srinivas worked at an American multinational that makes GPS systems. He joined the company in 2014. His wife Sunayana works in a technology company in the area. Well, joining us on the program, Srinivas's brother KP Shastri, who spoke to us earlier in the day. I began by asking him, this is of course a time of such nightmare, and we are just so sorry for the family's loss, tragic and mindless loss of life. When was the last time that the family spoke to Srinivas?
Actually, I live in Hyderabad, far away from where my parents live. Okay, last Monday they had a call with him, and it was only during the lunchtime he has called them. And post that, it was only the bad news which we have received.
Really not just bad news, but the worst kind of trauma that a family really has to go through. Now, Srinivas has been in the US since around 2005. Had he ever encountered this kind of hate? Had he ever mentioned anything to his family?
No, this is the first time. He has been, from here he has left to USA in 2005 to do his masters. Post that in 2007 he has got a job in Rockwell Collins, and from 2007 to 2014 he was working there. In 2014 he has moved to Garmin. Then he had to move from Cedar Rapids to Kansas. So it's been 2.5 years when I think approximately he has been in Kansas, and he has a good community friends there. His wife also stays with him, and she has been also in US way too long.
Right. They, of course, went there hoping for a better life, wanting to work hard and do well for themselves. Now, after President Trump was sworn in, after the change of guard, really, given the anti-immigrant rhetoric, did Srinivas say anything about being worried? Did this come up in his conversations with you and other members of his family? There's so much of hate out there.
Yeah, he has been chatting, saying during when election counting was going on, yeah, Trump is winning, Trump is winning. He has been posting messages to my dad. They were a bit worried because of his remarks.
Right, and I would imagine that given those conversations, the family at home was very worried, was very concerned about his safety. Had you brought it up with him? Had you asked him to look after himself, maybe even come back?
My father was in touch with him, saying them, if there is any absurd thing going on, you please come back, because life is the most important thing. Without life there is nothing. And before he had anything, his life ended. He is only 33-year-old.
It really is tragic. Really beyond words. We can't even imagine what you're going through. But in the midst of all of this, there have been appeals asking for contributions to help the family get the body back, wrap up all the expenses. They've already got over $250,000. It's the kindness of strangers. How do you react to that? Does it hold out some hope?
Indians living in US are like a single community. They have been come forward, and I have seen this fundraising also. They have been as a single community. Hatred like this will shatter all this.
That's really wonderful to hear you say that the community coming together in steps like this and the kindness that we are now seeing will put an end to this kind of crime. Now, one last question before we let you go. You must have just so many thoughts and memories swirling through your mind right now. What will be the everlasting memories that you have of Srinivas?
He has been a very hard-working guy, very studious, and well appreciated by all his friends and everyone. He has been a helping hand all the time. His wedding was one of the memorable things which I will never forget in my life. We were very happy. It's all done and dusted in 4 years.
Right. Mr. Shastri, like I said, it's really a tragic loss. The words really fail us at this time, but thank you so much for taking out the time to talk to us today, to share your memories, and of course, holding out some hope for all those lakhs of Indian techies, especially who are out there in America worried about their safety. Their families clearly more worried than they are. Let me introduce my panel on this. Right away, I'm joined by K.C. Singh. He's a former Secretary Minister of External Affairs, ex-diplomat and strategic affairs expert. Also from Washington, we're joined by Nish Acharya. He's the CEO, Equal Innovation Consulting, and ex-director of innovation for President Obama. Also with us shortly will be Anand Ahuja, lawyer and co-founder Indian Americans for Trump. Mr. Singh, first to you. We've seen the number of hate crimes really on the rise. Many people say it's not surprising at all. We're going to get into the numbers in just a bit, but for all those watching this evening worried that is this now the new normal, what would you say?
Yes, when you have this kind of electioneering and then the president goes on with his immigration bill, he's stopped by the courts, he's issuing another immigration order. So he's really feeding the frenzy into the white, racist, working class middle America, which has voted him in. He's still feeding it. So if this kind of a consequence results from it, it's not surprising at all. But I think what he needs to do very quickly, like he did in case of the Jews, that was understandable. His son-in-law is one. Apparently his daughter is also converted.
Absolutely.
That he did very quickly. But I think he needs to really step up to the plate and rein in this core group of followers of his, whom he is out to appease, because he has to really tell them that everyone who looks other than white is not an enemy. So this xenophobia, racism, it needs to be curbed, and needs to be curbed very quickly. Absolutely,
and the big worry is that along with hate, there's just so much ignorance out there that is being fueled, and you know, the big question, Nish Acharya, if I can get you in, the big question, of course, many are asking, you've seen several of those who back the Trump administration say that the president has denounced such attacks, he has called for such attackers to stop it, and this has been going on, but others argue that these are the point that Mr. Singh makes, these are the white supremacy and the views around it. Would you believe that the response from the administration has been rather lackluster?
Yes, I would agree with Mr. Singh, and I think the administration needs to be much more forceful and come out much more strongly against this type of violence against immigrants and against any Americans who come from different backgrounds. You know, it's not surprising. Mr. Trump has been doing this since he announced his campaign, you know, over a year, almost 2 years ago now. And he's behaved like this at rallies. He's behaved like this with regards to Mexicans, to Muslims, to Indians. And he's incited a lot of angry energy amongst his supporters. So this is the result of that, that when you incite people and point out people who look different or have different names and call them the enemy, it's not surprising that those people will lash out and that this type of a horrible activity will happen.
Absolutely horrific to say the least. Anand Ahuja, lawyer and co-founder Indian Americans for Trump, also with us on the phone line. Thanks for speaking to us, Mr. Ahuja. We just heard from the family of that engineer who has been killed. US, they say that they've been very concerned. Their brother Srinivas has been talking about the anti-immigrant rhetoric and the sentiment on the streets. The family, in fact, wanted him to come back. Given all those lakhs of Indians who are there in the US studying or working, they're all very worried tonight, sir. What can you say to them to reassure them?
First of all, my sympathies go to the family of the victim who was unfortunately victim of this heinous crime here. Hello? Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah. But the question here is why we are unnecessarily blaming President Trump for this tragedy. Isn't it that we are politicizing this unfortunate incident? If we go back and look into the history, during Barack Obama's second term, a Gurdwara in Wisconsin was attacked by some fanatics.
Absolutely, and we're not saying that there have not been such attacks, but sir, because you brought that up, I just want to quote the Southern Poverty Law Center, the leading monitor of hate crimes in the US, which has been recording a surge in hate crimes across the country in 10 days after President Trump was elected. Normally, the daily hate crime tally, they say, is in single digits. It surged to over 200 the day after his election. There's been some sort of an evening out on that, but the fact is that hate crimes have been on the rise since the president's election. How would you respond, sir?
Yes, I'm glad that you brought out that Southern Poverty the studies, center studies. If you look into the same study, before Barack Obama became president of the United States in 2008, there were neo-Nazi, about 50 groups, 150 neo-Nazi groups. Within 3 years of Barack Obama's becoming president, the number of neo-Nazi groups rose from 150 to 1,800. So it's not that with Donald Trump becoming president, this so-called hate crime incident, I do not call them hate crime incidents.
How do you define them, sir? How do you define them? And to all the critics who could hear you tonight and say that because it happened then, it's okay now, is that the point that you're making?
But that's unfortunate that every any incident we politicize it. If a Muslim kills somebody, that doesn't mean that entire Muslims are bad. One individual can be criminal in one community as well as in the another community also.
Right, but the administration has associated Muslim migration with terror attacks in the US. K.C. Singh, sir, would you like to respond?
That's also
yes, you know,
wrong caricature on your
part. See, part of the
may I
just come in?
Muslim country.
Yes, Mr. Ahuja, we hear you. Right, go ahead, Mr. Singh.
Yeah. You see, the reason those groups came up, we saw that during President Obama's presidency, the same groups which were demonizing him, questioning that he was born in America, questioning his faith, saying he was a Muslim, all those groups are the ones that Trump has tapped into.
Right.
So today the difference is that whereas at that point the administration was berating them and containing them, now the president is feeding the frenzy.
Right.
Remember that when the Gurdwara was attacked, President Obama sent a very senior person to that place.
And there was a strong statement by him too.
And he came a number of times. He came, yeah, and he made a statement, and he continuously, he was reaching out to the American people and saying, don't do it. This is not the way. But he himself was being targeted.
Right.
But now you have a president who's actually built up his presidency on this hate.
Absolutely.
So that is the difference. So he needs to detach himself from it.
Right. One last question to you, Mr. Singh. All those wondering just what can India do? We've got lakhs of people out there, lakhs of Indians out there. The point that Srinivas's family made, that they've been worried ever since President Trump's re-election. What really can India do to assure us of their safety, if anything at all?
Well, the External Affairs Minister has spoken to the ambassador, but I don't think that's enough. But unfortunately, she's not well. Otherwise, by now, we should have engaged their Secretary of State. But the Trump administration itself is in flux. There are a lot of gaps in State Department, a lot of appointments yet to be made. So at the highest level, we can't have the Prime Minister speak to Trump.
Right.
But certainly somebody should reach out to the next level and have them sensitize the President. Either NSA speaks to his counterpart and sensitize the President that please come out in public. And you can't. And remember, what is being reported is that this person after shooting was saying, Go home, and these are Middle Eastern people.
Go back to your
country. He was not identifying them as Indians.
That's in fact how he was caught, that he went ahead and told
Muslims.
people that he'd shot 2 Middle Eastern men, but I'm completely out of time. Thanks so much for your time, gentlemen. K.C. Singh, Nish Acharya and Anand Ahuja. The last word in this hasn't been spoken. Strong statements there from the foreign minister, but what more does India need to do, still being the big question.